Hi guys! So I am going to show you how to submit a Zoho expense report. And the purpose of this video is really just to show you a short guide, give you a little tutorial on how we use Zoho expense software for the purposes of expat. And if you're interested in learning more about this software, you want a more technical explanation, I'm sure that you can go online and find tutorials about this or things that Zoho Expense or Zoho themselves have done. But I just wanted to give you a little tutorial from someone who doesn't really understand technology very well, so that you guys can have kind of a user-friendly guide if you need a little bit of a refresher or you're trying to teach someone new on board how to do something. This is what the purpose of this video is. So we'll begin here by looking at our dashboard. So you type in expense.zoho.com, log in, and you should be here. And for the purposes of this video, we're submitting an expense report. I have an admin status, and that's why I have over here this reports approval and advanced approval section over here. But for the purpose of just submitting a report, if you're on the events team, if you're on any other team and you need to be reimbursed for something, this is what you would do. So you come here to their dashboard. Now they have this drag receipts feature. So I keep all my receipts here on my dashboard or my desktop rather, for example. And so I have a receipt for alcohol for an event. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that receipt and drag it in here. Now I'm going to show you an example. We actually have the receipt from this, just a picture of only the receipt. But this was a receipt for $687.31. And my VP of events in LA actually ended up tipping the guy a $20 tip in cash. So he didn't have a receipt for this. And ideally, of course, you always want receipts when possible. But you want to submit to Zoho expense the most detail that you have. So I'm actually submitting a screenshot of our text conversation with the date and the timestamp, the receipt, which you can see clearly here, as well as him telling me that he added a $20 tip. So I dragged it in here. Now you'll see actually here it says unreadable. If I was to drag in just the receipt, Zoho Expense usually does a pretty good job of finding the total on the receipt and putting it in there automatically. But since this is a text conversation, it's going to say something like this, which is fine. And I always end up checking it anyways. So we'll go ahead, and once it's dragged in and it's loaded in here, I'll go ahead and click add details. So we have to go in and put information in all of these categories. That's why they're red. You can't submit a report unless you filled these all out properly. So we have the date here, and I'll actually go ahead and change this date to match the one from our text conversation. So 8-29, you just want to be as accurate as possible on this. So we see here August 29th, so I change it to August 29th. And the category of these is alcohol. So we're working on this chart of accounts that I am syncing up with QuickBooks right now. But we go here, we know it's pertaining to an event, and it's a consumable. So, and it's alcohol. So it's pretty easy category. We don't have to think about that one too much. And I'll actually go in here and itemize this. Because I would like to include the $20 tip as a separate thing. So let me click on here one more time. We can go in and see that the total of the alcohol was $687.31. So right here, I'll do 687.31, and I'll say cost of alcohol. And I'm going to add another line. Same thing. Still alcohol, but this is the tip for alcohol. And that was $20. And now that'll add up to the total that I have here. So you won't have to do this for every single report that you have. It's just that since this is broken down into 2 different charges, but it's technically all the same charge, I just want to be as detailed as possible. So that is how much the cost is. And actually, before I continue, I did miss something here. So this is super, super important, especially because now we have credit cards for you guys to use. Claim reimbursement is literally just what it means. If someone needs to be reimbursed for something, so let's do it in first person. If I need to be reimbursed for something, I paid for it with my own money, then I need to keep this box checked. I actually already paid Alejandro this, so I'm going to unclick this. But if you're using the credit card that we gave you, you wouldn't unclick it, because otherwise you'd be reimbursed twice. So if I'm paying for it with my own money, make sure it's checked, but I'll unclick it because he's already been reimbursed, if that makes sense. All right. And because I know they've already been reimbursed, I'm going to go down here. And for right now, I'm going to use Business Advantage Checking Account as my option. But what I'm going to do is add categories for credit card. So because we'll be using the credit cards a lot now, if you paid for something using a credit card, then you'll go ahead and find where it says credit card around here. Okay, cool. But for now, for these purposes, just use Business Advantage Checking. This is the checking account that we all share together. Then we go here to customer. Now, this one is pretty obvious. You just have 3 locations, as well as the global team, which is Expat Inc. And this was for Los Angeles, our Welcome Back event. So we'll put DTLA. And the project name, we will choose here. So we see here, we look for all of the projects. What was this again? The Welcome Back event. Okay, it was Aperitivo. So I click that. And the final thing that you have to do, now it's not in red, but it's still a must, because this is how you're going to, we're going to input everything. You're going to add a report. So from here, we see that there's no report started for Aperitivo. So I click New Report, make sure that these fields are correct and they match. I press Save and Select. And then, very important step is if you come back to this screen, you'll see that this is actually blank. So you actually have to come back to the drop-down menu and click the report you just created. Now again, I'm sure there's a technical definition of like what a report is, what an expense is. How I think of it is that I think of expenses as singular and reports as a group of expenses. So if I have a bunch of expenses all relating to Aperitivo, I'll put all of the expense reports or the expenses in, and I will submit them as one report together. And because this is kind of like a very general definition, if you are kind of confused about it, I would just recommend looking it up, or you can ask me personally. But it's just that expenses are singular and reports are a culmination of those singular expenses. Now, for this example, we only have one expense that pertains to this report. So that is why I created this report. But say this is like the 3rd expense that you're doing for this report, you'll already see it in the drop-down menu and won't have to add new report. Again, if this is confusing, feel free to reach out to me about it. I'll probably end up just looking up the definition on Zoho expense to give you a real technical definition. But if you just generally follow this that I'm showing you, you should be fine. So then I will press save. And I like to kind of go over here and work off this little sidebar here on Zoho expense. So I went to the inbox. Now I go to the next thing. It is the expenses. And I see right here that this is the expense that I just submitted. It's split because we split it into those 2 alcohol charges, the tip as well as the total cost of the alcohol. I'll go ahead and go down here to reports, and you should see your report here as a draft. If you haven't submitted yet, it should be a draft. So you have to go ahead and click on it and press submit. And what this will say is it says to select an approver. It should automatically it should have this screen where it automatically chooses an approver. And what that means is all of the VPs of finance, financial officers that you guys have in location are going to receive this expense report, and they're going to go ahead and look at it and decide whether or not they should approve it, and ultimately whether or not they should reimburse you. So I'll go ahead and submit, and I should get this little bar that said it was successfully submitted. And that is how to do a Zoho expense report on a desktop. And if you have any other questions, you can also do it on your phone, which I'm going to probably film another tutorial. It's basically all the same thing. It just looks a little bit different on your phone versus on the desktop. And I find the desktop to be easier. Some people find the phone to be easier because you can just take a picture of the receipt on your phone and just upload it quickly. But yeah, so go ahead and download that on your phone. If you don't want to download it, you can just go to expense.zohoreport.com for the desktop and let me know if you have any questions.